Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dad's listening to Tomcats. Talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. This some weeding now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. Alright, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Penny Bloom Podcast. 'Tis I, Colton Robertson, and today is episode number 2 of the Moon Knight's Watch. For those who will hear it. Those who won't, don't. I'm joined by Joseph George. What's up, homie?
What up, what up? Always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and it is always a pleasure to have you. And today it's a special pleasure. Under the light of the moon here, we are discussing Moon Knight's second episode, titled Summon the Suit. It was a solid installment. You know, originally airs here on April 6th, 2022, written by Michael Castelline and directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. Since I didn't do it last week, episode 1 was written by Jeremy Slater and directed by Mohammed Diab. And right now, I got to give the advantage to episode 1 for Jeremy Slater and Mohammed Diab. That was for me, stronger episode than this. And, you know, it was the pilot. You had to come out with a bang. You did. And this was a good setup episode. It was necessary.
Indeed. Yes, would be very strange if they started, the season with an episode like this, just kind of dumping information and backstory. Not too much backstory, but a little bit. But yeah, definitely
Still a lot of mystery surrounding Stephen Grant and Mark Spector and exactly what's going on here. And it seems like my impressions now, and I've talked previously about how you're not going to hear a lot of comic accurate blah 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 blah. I don't like this compared to the comics. I like this compared to the comics. I don't care. I don't know that there's anything that is like comic adaptations change. They evolve. Like new writer gets them, new writer does his own thing with it. Mm-hmm. That's how these things work. And I try to approach the TV shows the same way. You know what I'm saying?
If it were completely comic book accurate, then what's the point of the show really for? Just to put it in live action and give, is the script the comic book, necessarily?
Yeah, exactly. No. Yeah, you got to take some creative liberties, and they certainly have here. I think I like the direction we're heading. I think we're heading in a decent direction. I've seen plenty of complaints online. And that's par for the course as online seems to have very few good things to say about whatever is happening at the moment. Be it Book of Boba Fett, be it Moon Knight. And it's to the point now where I'll see like a tweet that's like, wow, this episode of Moon Knight was great. And I'm like, yes, this is what the normal take is. This is what the whoever is watching Moon Knight doesn't know anything about Moon Knight is having a great fucking time.
That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And see, I think that's the problem that a lot of Marvel fans have, and it's understandable. If you grow a love for a character, you want to see that character honored in a proper way. And I've said that I have learned more about the character via comics, but I haven't developed like a real love for Moon Knight by any means. It's not like I'm attached to the character in any way, so I'm okay with whatever direction they're heading. But there are people who are diehard Moon Knight fans who are out here like, oof, not digging this. And you know what? I can't blame them. But I'm also not one of them, so I can't speak from their perspective. All I can say is that Oscar Isaac is, for me, right now, the best actor in the MCU.
I mean, he's having to play multiple characters at once. That's not really a task that's been given to any other character.
Not for sure.
And to balance that, as well as just to perform in each one of them, he does very well as Mark. He does very well as Steven.
And I love now that like Steven's accent is so clearly fake that it's like almost intentional how bad it is. Like it's like bruv, it's gonna blow your mind, bruv. He threw out a couple bruvs this episode after he heard bruv, and I thought it was hilarious.
I have heard some people say that it'll be interesting to see, like, if the explanation on why it's so bad is that if it's a very new accent, if this is something if he's only been Steven for about 2 months, because it seems that he hasn't been suffering with multiple personality disorder before. When he was with Layla before, at least she didn't, it was just Mark, at least.
That's my thing. They're still leaving that pretty ambiguous. I'm under the impression leaving this episode that Khonshu is the recent development and Mark's been kind of privately dealing with the dissociative identity disorder for a while.
Thank you for saying the correct.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I've just seen people go out of their way to be like regarded as such. So I've been trying to be careful. DID, if you want to go with a shorter one that is easy to remember, DID is also appropriate. And this show is taking a really interesting approach to it. I saw a Twitter thread today from someone who suffers from dissociative identity disorder talking about like how the show's actually doing a pretty good job, at least from their perspective as their experience has gone. They were taking the whole seeing the alternate identity in a mirror is more of a artistic liberty than a thing that's actually happening. It's more, that's how they're portraying to us who is speaking, who is like, what personality, what identity is per se in control or speaking at the moment. And I think it's a powerful visual cue, like it, and we got to see it on full display when Mark was in control and Steven was in there talking about how you've always ruined my life. This has always been you, blah, 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 blah. Shut up, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I've always, I don't know what the comics really have to say, but I like this idea that they're going to have to work together instead of it just being Mark taking over completely, whatever, or whatever. And he has the new look, I was told I needed to wear a suit or someone a suit, and it just is perfect that he has a different look to him. And
the old Mr. Knight. And that's one of the things that people are particularly being like, this was kind of an portrayal, I've read like my thing is that like like I said, I don't have like an affinity necessarily. I'm not in love with the character of Moon Knight, so I'm not too attached to it. But to me, this didn't feel all that bad. It certainly felt MCU-ified, it felt like this more so than the premiere felt like an MCU show for my money. And I'm not sure what it was exactly. I think like the first episode was more tightly written. I think it was more visually distinct. But that doesn't take away from this one too much, Oscar Isaac still performs like crazy. I loved the introduction of Layla in actual visual way instead of just hearing her. She's cool. I'm kind of digging Layla, except man, for someone who's married to Mark, seems to have very little regard for his mental state.
And I don't know how to take if it's just we obviously know what he's suffering with, and everyone else could just be like, oh, why are you putting on this act, and playing into it and making him seem like he's more crazy, and maybe it just hasn't clicked in their mind that because if you're completely blind to it and you have no idea of DID or if anyone's suffering with it at all, then you have like
no
would
frame of
clue you in
reference
to be
for it.
like, oh, this is obviously what they're suffering with. So
Yeah,
I guess
man.
that's kind of how I'm taking it right now, because she kind of accepts it at the end, or
Oh
like
yeah,
before
yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
changes into the Mr. Knight persona. Like,
Well, and it was really key of her to. She was
mm,
going, "Your name is Mark. Do this. Like, we need your help. Summon the suit. Your name is Mark. Your name is Mark. Your name is Mark." He's freaking out. Tells her and Mark to shut up, and she goes, "Steven."
mm,
And he's like, all right, this I can work with. You telling me that I'm Mark is not helping me.
mm-hmm,
I hear that. I hear what you're saying to me, but it's not clicking. It's not something that's like, I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm Mark.
mm,
I think it was a really powerful moment in terms of just, making, Steven is his own identity,
mm,
like he has feelings. He's living his own life. And he's certainly mad at Mark, and it'll be interesting for them to kind of reveal to us at some point who is the main persona
mm.
who was born Mark Spector or Stephen Grant, and then I imagine since Stephen Grant's kind of got the fake British accent thing going on, he's going to unfortunately learn at some point that he was not he was a result of the dissociative identity disorder, which I think will it'll be interesting to see how they handle that, because like I said, like I'm not too on the last episode, I'm not too well versed in the whole DID of it all. I try to be as respectful as I can and try my best here, but it'll be interesting to see, because I have no idea how they'd handle that. Like I have no idea how an identity responds to learning they have dissociative identity disorder. That's something interesting.
The only kind of, I guess, I don't know, not really confusion, but question that I had was at the very end when they're in Cairo, or is that where the appear? I feel like,
well, they're in Egypt somewhere. It might be Cairo, might
is
not
it
be.
Cairo where the okay, not important. But he looks in it shows the mirror first, and he's sitting in his bed looking at his, it's not his true reflection. It's a, one of his personas in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And he has bloodied hands. And he's sitting in a different way, but he doesn't look like Steven necessarily. He doesn't look surprised that his hands are, usually whenever Steven finds himself in the situation, he has a certain face to him almost.
He's like, fuck.
And this one, and then I presume what we actually see at the end, the guy who stands up, opens the window, that's Mark, drinking, I don't feel like
Seems like
Steven's
Mark.
a drinker.
Yeah.
But the mirror did not seem like Steven either, though. Which was really, I only caught that on second. Well, I didn't even catch it the first time, that it was
I didn't catch it either time I watched.
Completely different like things. But
and there is the fact that in the comic books there is a third identity. There is Jake Lockley. So it's like I wonder if that's something that's a late in the game reveal now. Like they're going to be like also this, or if we meet Jake Lockley next episode, or if we meet Jake Lockley at all. What if they just went ahead or maybe that's one that we get down the line. That's you never know with how long Moon Knight could stay in the MCU. Like there's no telling what could become of the character and what could happen long term. But another really interesting side of this episode was the Arthur Harrow of it all, Ethan Hawke, explaining that he was once Khonshu's avatar. And we had some speculation last week about what exactly Arthur Harrow was, and what he's been up to, what his motivations are, what the little beetle does. And I'm glad it's not what creates the connection between Khonshu and Mark. I'm glad that wasn't what it ended up being. I was like, I didn't think that was comics accurate. I'm fairly certain. And it turns out it leads to Amit's tomb. Points in that direction. So we got a little bit more information there.
Steven knew where North was inside of a building. And dude knows he's,
You're not pointed north.
Yeah. But that was cool to have that explanation. But I think an even better explanation to be had was Arthur's whole justification for why he's doing this, like in the first place. We got a lot more detail and even like questions that the audience would ask, like, would they kill a child? You know, like, are you cool with that? And he's like, I'm glad you brought that up. I feel like it was very self-aware.
Oh,
And Steven is like a very, I don't know, like it asks questions that like any normal audience or viewer would ask. And that was really comforting to like just have it all kind of explained right there. And
yeah, it's definitely huge, but I still feel like he's not telling us the whole truth. You know, he hasn't said that he is the avatar of Amit. He keeps mentioning he has something with a fraction of her power. But that doesn't mean he's serving the will of Amit.
That's true.
And I think it's on display at the end whenever he takes the beetle from the dude who he promises food and clothing to.
That's what I was going to.
And he goes, "I wish you could see the world we're going to build." And
I was going to ask, why kill that guy there? You know, like he was obviously going to give him the scarab. You know, like they follow him for anything. Like I would assume he's one of their members, like member of the community there that they've built, it seemed. Or was that the same area, or did he find the scarab somewhere else? Like,
that's a good question. Because I think it all breaks out in that area because the DCs bring Steven to the area, and like I think it all happens after that. But yeah, it was a really interesting side of the story with Arthur Harrow this week, and a little bit more clarification there, but still not a clear view of well, I think we know exactly what he wants to do, but it's more up to his interpretation rather than actually what Amit is spitting at him. You know what I'm saying? He hasn't said he's the avatar of Amit, which is important. You know, he's mentioned he was the avatar of Khonshu. And this does have a fraction of Amit's power.
No, I just want to get this out of the way. No Power Stone connection. This is like, do you think it's truly just in this own, you know, Egyptian realm of power here, or you think like, because I'm like, there's no way the entire Power Stone is in there. For one, like there's no way that dude's just carrying around the Power Stone, and no way there's like a little pebble of it, you know, like you can't, I don't know. So the visuals were very, very similar was the only thing, just because it's purple, I guess, you know, when I'm in Marvel, I immediately am like, and you know, like the whole, the Power Stone slamming into the planet to destroy it. Like, I was just kind of like, but this is opening a portal or like from,
you know, we're in Marvel. So I had, you know, the Marvel brain going, you gotta have something of that thought when it comes to the godly powers that be in the MCU, is that they're to always be an MCU-ified explanation for it. And I think it would be interesting if that is somehow tied to the Power Stone. However, you know, the portal to hell.
And this is a thing that kind of clicked for me while watching this episode. How Khonshu can kind of physically affect things, but he can't do much. Like, he can control wind, knock some stuff over. So
he can't do anything if he doesn't have you.
Yes, he exists kind of in the same realm, but in a different dimension. And I think like Doctor Strange will clear this up very, very clearly. The difference between like going through different universes and like the different dimensions that there are, because it's just mind-boggling to talk about. Like in the first, like just to think that like.
There are beings
in this room, you know, like, yeah, like if I can go to a different dimension right now, I could still be in my room, but Khonshu could be chilling on my bed and I wouldn't, you know, I'd have no idea unless I'm in that dimension or whatever.
Right.
So like, it's just kind of cool to think that like, if maybe like whenever he's summoning the suit, that he just like has vision through both dimensions,
Mm.
and like there's just ancient Egyptian, just like I don't even know what to call, not just people, but like
Incantations.
just things all around, or something like that. But I don't
Dude,
know. It's
yeah.
just
I mean, the summoning of the suit stuff was really cool. I mean, I love Mark Spector's Moon Knight armor. Like that shit is badass. But I do love that Mr. Knight suit. I think that's
clean.
pretty tough.
It is clean.
And that was one of the, if not the first, I think the first Moon Knight run I read. Mr. Knight was Moon Knight. There was I didn't see the Moon Knight armor first. I was first familiar with the character as Mr. Knight.
And the two poles that he had, is that on the other armor as well, or is that kind of specific to Mr.
I've
Knight?
seen,
Or does he does whenever he's just in the regular armor, does he just favor the I don't
the
know what
moon
to,
rings.
yeah.
But no, I believe that Mark Spector's suit has used those sticks in comics, and I remember in like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, they were part of his weaponry and stuff. So like, I think that was more like they were splitting up the weapon choices based on costume design and stuff. And Mr. Knight does pull up with those sticks. Like he doesn't fuck with the moonerangs. That's not his bag. He does it's the fucking stick thingies. He fucks with those. But
And interesting to hear Khonshu, like I thought that he would be like the moon god, of this of I don't know what to call it, I guess religion. But it seems that he called himself like the god of vengeance. Like that's what he like, and justice. Like I didn't like obviously it is Moon Knight, and like there's moon in his name, but like I don't
Arthur
know.
Harrow mentions, that he's kind of Khonshu's kind of a fuck boy. And as far as comics are concerned, the other Egyptian gods, they don't fuck with Khonshu either. He's kind of he's kind of full of himself. He thinks he swings a lot bigger than he should. He considers himself the god of vengeance and the god of justice and so on and so forth. But he is just the god of the moon. So that's why he can't afflict the justice anywhere he pleases. He can only do so much. You know what I'm saying? And it's just him playing God. He's a god playing God, and he's a god who's not godly enough for his own taste, which is really interesting.
And so at the beginning in the museum, I'm thinking back to the first episode when he's like, "There's only 7 here, but there's 9." There are 9. I'm assuming the 2 missing.
Feels like Amit and Khonshu are probably
those 2. But whenever he was staying awake in the first episode, he went to read a passage. The passage that it focused on was Emund, or Emmund, I think. And it was a different god, completely separate from these 7 or 9.
the Ennead.
And it was the one true god of like Egypt, or like of this religion. And it was the first monotheistic, is that the word?
Monotheistic.
Monotheistic, like kind of religion to take over the world at one point. Like it was the first time where people were like, yes, this is our one true kind of God, where people believed in one. And I wonder, I don't know if that is separate from these 7, if that or not, if that has any bearing. I mean, I feel like I'm just reading into it too much, or I'm trying to look at every detail that I possibly can.
That's some intent. That's some attention to detail there. I certainly had not picked up on that, and at least as far as the comics I've read, I've never read anything with the one true God of Egypt. But it would be an interesting direction. They're playing the whole God game with the Celestials and now Moon Knight and stuff. It's really interesting, and it would be cool to see. And I like the idea that, you were talking about the multi-dimensional thing earlier, not just the multiversal thing, which I think is an important distinction that I've never really considered. That Like they're operating in the same area, the same places at the same time, but they're in a different dimension. And I think that'd be an interesting way to incorporate a lot of these sort of figures.
Like, I feel the connection of like future Marvel that this dimension thing is kind of introducing is within one universe, there are infinitely many dimensions as well. And one dimension could be animated. One could be the blocky that you see, whenever Doctor Strange like turns into blocks, whatever, like different looks to them. And I feel like it could be the explanation of like a Miles Morales coming in initially as animated, but then coming, forming a true self to him in our dimension that we know, basically. So it's not maybe it's not a universe they go to that's animated. Like the whole universe isn't animated. Maybe it's just within
a dimension of the universe.
So I don't know if they're really going to go that deep with dimensions and multi. I mean, they're going to have to get crazy with it. We're traveling through different universes and stuff, and I don't want to really dive too deep into it now.
Right.
With Moon Knight, we're talking Moon Knight here, but I don't know. I think I don't know if dimensions will become more important or not, but it is cool to see that Khonshu kind of exists in his own dimension, and that's like kind of canon in a way now. That like they're doing it with Egyptian gods.
Hey man, I was just glad to see that they made sure we knew in this episode that it wasn't just Steven seeing things. People couldn't see it, but it was affecting their world. The way the hound, the demon hound, is stomping on the glass, and you see the footprints it makes without seeing it. And I really liked that, because at the beginning it was like, oh shit, was he really just seeing that? How did he? What was going? And
I
they
think
make it clear.
Back to the lights, like the hallway lights that turn on when you walk through them, used in Morbius as well. It seems that they're going to be using these all over Marvel for anything scary now. It just works really well.
It's really foreboding. They also use it in Apple TV's Severance quite a bit.
I guess I don't know if that's just like a London thing, if that's like just how buildings are. I mean, it's smart, it conserves energy. I'm all about it. But it definitely adds to the horror aspect.
It certainly does.
And so, yeah, I like that. But a thing that I am really curious, or was glad that we got an explanation of, is that Mark doesn't want to give up being Moon Knight necessarily when this deal is over, because he doesn't like the next candidate who Khonshu would choose. And I think that's a really cool explanation to say why he has to stick with it, and why he'll probably never give it up, or unless some way Layla will not be the next candidate. I don't know how that all works. I don't know if Layla is the next candidate just because Khonshu is just being a dick about it, or like if it's truly...
there's the possibility Khonshu's like, I honestly don't give a fuck about Layla. Like, I want you to be Moon Knight, so I'm going to threaten you with someone else being Moon Knight.
And like, why did he choose Mark necessarily? Just because he was a mercenary and in the military and had specific skills? Or like, I mean, Arthur does mention it. Like, did he pick you because your mind would be easy to break, or because you were broken already? Which, an interesting, I don't know, there's still a lot of mystery behind
the timeline of it all.
Yeah. What happened 2 months ago? What happened whenever he went off for the first time? And
it's also interesting learning Layla was definitely a mercenary alongside Mark. You got this after what we fought for. You were just going to keep it for yourself, and it was like, oh, what we fought for, huh? So interesting that they met at least through this mercenary thing. And it's interesting, wife, that implies a long relationship. What we fought for sounds like a long fought battle. I don't know, man. This is seeming like it could be extending back a lot longer than we know. and Mark just left Layla a month and a half ago. It's not really the whole Moon Knight thing happened a month and a half ago, and he immediately went away. He was like, fuck, I need to manage this somehow. She can't be in it. I gotta go. Now, it could still be 2 months ago, but I don't know. It's all seeming to go back
I
a
don't know
lot
where
further.
I'm pulling that 2-month thing from. Is that just
Layla said something about how she's been calling for a month and a half.
Oh, a month and a half. Okay. I guess the only other thing is like, why was the Scarab in Germany? You know, like, because whenever the first episode he woke up with the broken jaw and outside the castle, I'm presuming I think that's Germany. I don't know. It just looked very like a German town. The castles and stuff. I guess it was somewhere in Europe other than London. But like, why was it in that castle necessarily? Was it moving beforehand? You know, is there another party that's moving it around, trying to not let Mark or Arthur get a hold of it? Or is it just it's been there this whole time and they just discovered the location of it, or whether that'll be explained or not. I don't know if that's important at all.
Well, I mean, it could be, the location could be important because, you know, it has this European look about it. Germanic, generally, European nation with an MCU villain as its leader, Latveria, Victor Von Doom has a castle in Latveria. Who knows? Could be. He likes the mystic. He likes mixing the mystic and the scientific. That's kind of his bag. It would be interesting to introduce Victor Von Doom as not a Fantastic Four villain, or at least set him up, and then Fantastic Four can knock him out of the park later, which would be also very cool.
Okay, I guess like technically we got Kingpin in the MCU through Hawkeye, you know, and like who expected Kingpin to come in through Hawkeye? You know, like it's a very Spider-Man.
True. He's not going to be a Hawkeye villain. He was just popping up in Hawkeye.
I guess his introduction is Daredevil, but it wasn't MCU necessarily before, and I think now they're just like treating it as if it's such. Or is it just the actors that they're taking, or are they saying that these events that happen in
there's like an official, I think the official Marvel website for Daredevil's summary, like the character Matt Murdock, is that, you know, after it all happened, him, Foggy, and Karen went on to start Nelson, Murdock, and Page, and then a paragraph down it was like, later on, Murdock was hired as Peter Parker's attorney. So I think they're kind of just going, that all happened at the very least. They might not acknowledge a ton of it.
It's all within Hell's Kitchen, you know, so it's not like it affected a whole lot, if anything.
Not a huge scope.
I guess, you know, I wasn't even thinking of anyone else who could be in this show, like MCU wise. I'm glad with just Oscar Isaac and Moon Knight. You know, I'm satisfied. Yeah, if no one else shows up, I'm cool. But like,
frankly, I'd almost prefer no one else showed up. I'm just saying, like, with the little bits that we got of that European town and a giant castle and a weird place generally, with some mystic stuff going on, Latveria is not a bad guess. I mean, I don't know, man. It's
that's pretty cool. I'm looking at it. The castle looks pretty Okay. I just Googled Latveria, and then I look at the first picture that's up here, and like that castle looks and the whole hill that they're driving on the whole time, and like the town. That'd be pretty sick. If I don't know, like maybe this is just the first seeds of Doctor Doom or something.
Hey, check this out. Check this shit out. Let me share my screen right quick. If you'd
Latveria, sorry. Oh, yes.
Here, I got you. Check this shit out.
Wow, I never What an early get if we do get this. Like if if he does come out in this series. Would be a really sick prediction to get. But
can you see my screen, or am I fucking up?
I cannot.
All right.
Now. Maybe since I was doing it at the same time, you would have to maybe turn it off and back on.
Fuck it. Forget about it. That's some bad podcasting, not being able to figure out how to share the screen. No, but in the first episode, apparently, upon looking into this, there's a box behind Oscar Isaac in the front seat, in which the seat covers up most of the word on the box, cardboard box, but it says Von D. Which feels pretty damning. However, I don't know for sure. I'll have to go back and watch that scene because this could, who knows, this could be doctored, but I don't know. That looks pretty.
I see that on Twitter or something though. I think I remember seeing something about that actually.
No shit.
Maybe it was just a screenshot. Maybe it was in an Easter egg YouTube video or something like that. That I watched after the episode, but I am curious if like Arthur is the, if he's the top of the ladder of like the, I guess like if he answers to anybody, if he's only answering to Amit or like the idea of Amit right now, or if he's answering to someone else that we know of or don't know of yet.
I'm fairly confident right now he's not necessarily answering to anyone else. I think if anything, he might be in correspondence with someone else for resources. He might be like something like that, but nobody is telling him what to do. I don't think. I think he's playing prophet. He was, according to him, the avatar of Khonshu. I don't know though. I got some have you heard the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise vibes from Arthur Harrow as he was explaining to Stephen that do you know what this is? A cane. It is it belonged to the first of Amit's avatars. And I don't know, what if there's something with the avatars being able to fuck with the god themselves and potentially take their power for their own?
Was that
I don't know.
Was that staff given voluntarily by Amit,
or did Arthur Harrow take it upon being Amit's avatar?
And have avatars been a thing? I would assume, since ancient Egypt at least, like it's been a thing happening for that long. And I mean, who knows if it's even before? I don't know if it's just I don't know what to think there. Kind of crazy that like this is in the MCU. Like it's just nuts that like this is just another thing that we're wrapping in here. Looking on IMDb right now, and Sophia Danu is credited as Amit already. Which is just interesting to see. And like the voice of Khonshu, we've obviously heard already, and
listed for 4 episodes.
So looks like next episode
we'll be meeting Amit next episode,
which I felt we're in Egypt.
Felt like we're headed there, they said they're going to Amit's tomb. Like that feels like where else would we go at this point? We're heading there for Amit's tomb. So maybe we run into Amit early next episode, and then or not early next episode, but at least next episode, and then maybe Amit's a part of it, and who knows what the fuck's going on
all
here,
these
man.
4-episode people that we haven't seen, I guess, would be kind of confirmed being the rest of it. Amit being probably the biggest.
That's the big one right now. That is the big one.
And I don't know. I think this is the jump off point. I think this is where things start to go crazy. This is halfway next episode by the end of it. And I mean, we're in Egypt. I think this is this is where we're going to get some backstory. I
I'm
feel like
hoping
next episode will be
like Mark kind of reflecting on what happened.
Mm.
When him saying like, you were nothing more than a corpse when I found you.
And I heard an interesting thing said about the first episode back whenever he was just giving a little girl some like history on ancient Egypt and whenever you were judged, if you were allowed to move on or not. And the girl asked him like, well, how, what was it like whenever you were judged, or like something along the lines of like asking Steven like, well, what was it like for you? And he was like, well,
what?
I'm not dead yet. And like,
yeah,
for one, why is a little girl asking that? Two, like he has died. I think that's part of his storyline. I think like you were a corpse whenever I found you, Khonshu says. So
resurrected by Khonshu. It wasn't exactly a consensual. Yeah, I'll be your guy.
So maybe,
or maybe it was once he woke. Maybe it was
Mark?
once he got a hold of him. Was like, yo, you either die right here or come with me.
So, does Khonshu view Amit as an enemy?
See, that's what's interesting is that like we're heading in a direction where it's like the Khonshu agenda, what he wants done. It's going to be interesting to find out if it is truly what is best.
Because I'm thinking something happened in Egypt where Mark died, and he was doing some mercenary work, seemingly trying to find the scarab. At least that's the only guess I can make now. He dies somehow after executing everyone else who was there. Or no, is that how he died? Or what?
So this was something I could kind of key in based on comics knowledge. They're probably going to paint us one way with Mark seeming like the guy who executed a bunch of people. But the truth is he had a partner who lost his shit, was responsible for nearly killing him, and him crawling to Khonshu, essentially.
Because
his name was like
I was trying
Bushman
to piece together a reason why Khonshu would resurrect Mark. Like if he's going there and he's trying to find the scarab, he would have to be doing something, I would say, already in human, just as Mark, that would benefit Khonshu, or like a part of Khonshu's agenda, and that's why he chose Mark to resurrect. Like maybe he was doing something.
He was already doing something to benefit Khonshu,
and that's why he chose. But I'm trying to say, what would he have been doing?
See, and that's the thing is we gotta learn more about what Khonshu's motivations in this game are, and what are we truly just trying to prevent Amit from rising and murdering a bunch of people upon rising? Like, yeah, these people shall be judged dead. Like, is that just what we're trying to prevent right here, or is there something more that we're not seeing? And given that it's the MCU, I imagine that here in a couple episodes we're going to learn it's something more that we're not seeing, and then we're going to get very little explanation, and then we're going to see it happen. And
do we know, like, where this is fitting in, like, timeline wise? Is this post emergence?
For now, I'm taking everything since WandaVision, pretty much, just kind of in sequence. Like it's all happening as it's being presented to us. Until we see something that's like, oh well, that couldn't have happened back to back. Like that's just not possible. I'm operate under that assumption. So I'm a guess this is after Eternals. I'm a guess this is after No Way Home. I'm a guess this is after. The No Way Home of it all could still, Like No Way Home seems like it could still be later than everything in the Marvel timeline right now.
Only reason I bring it up is I feel that the multiverse is going to break open. This is bound to happen, and there's just Nexus events happening everywhere, and I feel like they're all happening at the same exact time. I feel like Wanda becoming the Scarlet Witch was her Nexus moment. Loki, and Sylvie, the ultimate like Nexus moment. And is that the ultimate Nexus moment? Is Kang the tippy top of this? Is he the true cause of it all? I'd say it's the closest answer we have right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna take them at face value with that for now and say yes, he is the tippy top of that particular issue.
I'd say Falcon, becoming the first Black Captain America, Nexus moment, not talked about enough. The emergence, the first Celestial from not bursting being born
from within Earth.
That's the first Celestial that wasn't born. Pretty Nexus event to me. And now I feel like the opening of Amit's tomb could be this Nexus event. Something that hasn't happened in who knows how long. I don't know how Amit's been stuck in this tomb. I don't know, forever. Has she ever been out? I don't know.
Shit, man. There's just no telling. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all fits together. And yeah, you'll notice this episode has mostly been speculating about what it could mean, and that's mostly because this episode didn't give us a ton to chew on story wise. I'd say I think it was necessary to kind of expand upon Mark and Steven and their interactions, and that aspect of the episode was really, really, really compelling. I did like seeing them go back and forth more. I was wondering if we would. We certainly did. Another really emotional scene with Mark going, shut up, shut the fuck up.
Ooh,
that was
and right there, whenever he was like, before there seemed to be a wall between us, but now it's just whoever's
there's
in control. Something that has
else.
Changed, which is interesting. What that change is. Maybe it's just Mark summoning the suit for the first time. Or not Mark, Steven summoning the suit for the first time, in his own way. I don't know if that's what changed it or if it's something in their mind. Maybe Steven is more accepting of Mark. He's a very aware that he is there now and that it is real and that it is, another one of his identities. Maybe it's just his acceptance of that has changed. Maybe Khonshu has changed something.
It's real interesting to think, like, because I wouldn't be surprised if I want to try and avoid MCU-ifying explanations for the effects of his DID. I like the way they're handling the power aspect of it and like how it emerges and like being they're not extra personalities, they are the identities and control of the suits, which I really enjoy. Very, very important to me. But like, I saw a theory, and this is nowhere near the realm of what we've been talking about, but that Mark's personality, Steven's personality, these are multiversal identities of Moon Knight emerging in one reality. And I'm like, that's an interesting MCU explanation, but it should not be what's happening here. And if it is, it's handled severely poorly. It's not, it's definitely not that. But I'll continue to pray it is not that.
I guess, one thing I was talking about in episode 1 was what's this key for, glad we finally got that. I guess now it's just obvious that it's a storage unit key. I was thinking like it to a different apartment. I was like, storage unit was probably my number one thing, but the
storage unit. I was glad we got there. I was glad we found that, and the story's been set up. The next 4 episodes could be key in making this like right now this has the potential to be the best Marvel show, I'd say. MCU show, anyway. I think these first 2 episodes have got them rolling in the right direction. They just need to close. Because, like I've said before, the MCU's approach to television is not a traditional approach to television. These are the first. This is the first little bit of a very long movie, and you don't go and judge a movie by its first 40 minutes when it's 2.5 hours. It's just not how things work. But that's kind of how they've presented the story to us. So we're gonna have to see how the entire story ends up. But like I said last week, due to them doing that, it affects it week to week in terms of how I perceive the episode. And when it comes to the rating section of our podcast, it'll probably take a dink compared to last week for my money.
Yeah, interesting. We gave last week an enjoyment a 4 out of 5. And I feel maybe there were cooler moments, I don't know. I'd say 4 is kind of the ceiling, or around. I don't know. I kind of enjoyed this episode for different reasons than the first one. The first one, I'm getting all this new information, and it's like, oh, this is so cool. Whether I know what's going on or not, this is all new. I'm in it no matter what. But now that I've kind of had the world set up, and I guess I don't know what I'm expecting. But I'm just left with more questions, which I guess is the point. But I don't know. I guess I'm curious where you're sitting for enjoyment here.
As far as enjoyment's concerned, I'm not where I was last week. I remember after I watched the episode the first time last week, I was like, we'll see. And then I watched it again and I was like, all right, I did like that. I'm in. And that's ultimately why it took a hit last week for me, is that it took me a viewing and then it took me going ahead and doing it again for me to go, all right, yeah. So, I mean, it couldn't have been perfect, but it was still enjoyable. This one, I'm sitting roughly where I was after my first viewing of last week after 2 viewings. So I'm sitting more at like a 3.75, 3.8 for the enjoyment on this week.
Like that's fair. Just a little below, but not too much, on the grand scheme of things. I was around 3.75 as well. For here, because
it is still Marvel, and I'm enjoying the shit out of it. Like there's no doubt, but I'm trying to approach the MCU and Marvel products with a little bit more of a scale based on how I view superhero stuff instead of a scale on how I view everything. It's just kind of I got to be more critical of these things. But yeah, I'd say
putting some predictions down just so that we can refer back to them in the future. I feel like our prediction for this episode is maybe some Doctor Doom involvement, and maybe that involves Latveria as well, which could be really cool. I don't know if we caught that early. I feel like that's pretty cool. My first prediction was Celestial or Hiroshima, and I'm apart from that now. I'm going a different route.
I get you,
but I don't know. I feel like there might be some Eternal connection, possibly, just with history and that the Eternals have been around and stuff like that. And
last week you asked me who can make an appearance, and we considered Black Knight for a second, and I was like, I don't know, I don't think he's developed enough yet for him to make an appearance. And then off mic, we started talking, and we were like, oh shit, maybe Black Knight's not exactly an option, but Dane Whitman probably is. The historian who wants to learn, who might show up to a museum and might interact with certain characters, and
I guess out of the Eternals, who's been collecting historic artifacts this entire time?
Makari, that'd be an interesting.
I guess if not Dane, could be really cool for maybe Makari to show up. I don't know. I think, but I think this one's pretty strong. the
Dr.
Doctor
Doom
Doom, and
Latveria.
with the van thing, which is pretty cool. The little teaser there. I mean, everything is put here intentionally. Marvel knows what they're doing. They know their fans are going to dissect this frame by frame, and the casual fan's not going to think anything of it. It's just lettering in the background.
And it's going to lead people down the wrong direction.
True.
At times too. You know, all the little flies on the wall. That's Mephisto, baby.
I love how they brought that up. Like, just, you know, it would take all of your willpower to even be a fly on the wall, and it's like, all right. Like, I don't know if they're just taking jabs at us, you know, for every cockroach we see that we have to be like Mephisto or, you know, whatever.
I'm gonna go long game with Mephisto. I'm gonna lay a prediction for you here. I don't think we're necessarily wrong. I think there's going to be some sort of explanation down the line where he truly has been there, and we just haven't been able to identify him. You know, we never got closure on the mailman in WandaVision. We never figured out who the fuck that guy was. There was only one appearance in this episode that made me go, I was like, this guy's a little sus, and they're not showing his face. He's being real. It was just the dude who showed Steven to the storage locker. Don't know what it was about him, but there was just this weird air about him that, like, they never showed his face. That, like, it was almost purposeful the way they never showed his face. And then, you know, he shows up and he's like, yeah, I know who you are. I never forget a face. It felt like a weird thing to say. Maybe it was just an explanation to be like, yeah, this is why I'll show you to the storage locker. But, like, it felt like a weird thing to say. And, you know, I like latching on to things, so I'm going to latch on to this. And, you know, this guy won't show up again in this show. And he won't show up again in this form ever again if he is Mephisto, according to my theory.
Is there who was the guy that Arthur kind of said was from a place? He was sitting up on the rafters like, hey, yeah, that guy's he's hilarious or something like that.
Oh yeah. I can't remember.
That was a kind of weird, like, you know, maybe it was just to show him that he knows everybody and that he's friendly with everyone, but whatever. But that would be a guy that I was like, weird that they focused in, you know, on him for.
Yeah, you know, and it ultimately is just the weird narrowing in on things where it's like, and like my MCU brain always paying attention to what seems off about any given situation, and sometimes I project it onto things. I don't actually believe that we saw Mephisto in disguise here, but, you know, in case we did, it'd be interesting to have been right here. Arishim the Judge. I believe it's Arishem.
And not Hiroshima. That's not what I'm looking for. Oh, sorry.
Arishem.
That looks
Arishim.
But
yeah.
But I guess getting back to the ratings, getting back here.
Yeah, you know, we landed at a 3.75 for enjoyment. As far as genre is concerned, this episode also had less of a definitive genre feel to it than the first episode did. This felt a little bit more genre blendy, and maybe not even genre blending, more like genre chopping. There were moments of this episode where I wasn't a fan of the tonal switch on a dime. There were things that were like, oh, this is mad intense, and then it would get what was supposed to be comical in moments, and like this episode went a lot harder for the comedy than the last episode did. And there are times when it works. There absolutely are. But there were moments in this episode where it felt a little bit like I think you're trying to tell a joke, but it's missing. So I'm not as definitive on like the whole horror side of things or the supernatural side of things. I think it did do a good job with the supernatural aspects, and I think that's how we'll have to keep considering the episodes. I don't know. How would you say this compared to last week's supernatural aspects? The interactions with Khonshu and the the Hound of Baskerville, as the guy said. I'm so glad he said that at the counter, because last week I was like, this is some Sherlock Holmes ass shit, buddy. And then he said, Hound of the Baskerville. And I was like, fuck yeah. Thank God he said it. I feel, I think it didn't do quite as strong as last week. I think the mystery that loomed last week made it hit a little bit harder in the supernatural side of things.
I'd say it wasn't too far behind this. I'm thinking 4.25 is maybe the floor. I'd say maybe that is kind of where it belongs even. I don't know if 4.5 is too high. I liked every time that there's kind of like a horror aspect, it kind of feels forced sometimes. And I feel like we're not really going to get a lot more of that because Steven won't be afraid of Khonshu anymore. Just kind of accepting that he is there, that he's the app. He knows a lot more stuff now. But I feel like it's not going to be horror through the lens of Steven or Mark or Oscar Isaac. It's going to be horror on everyone, on his victims. He's going to be the one scaring people from now on.
The fist of vengeance.
But I don't know. I don't know. My gut was 4.25.
I think I'm there with you. Genre. I think for the supernatural side of stuff, it was really, really strong. But I do think, I think the best is yet to come for the supernatural stuff. I think they're really going to wallop us with it later on, and I think it's going to be strong. But I think 4.25 is a good place to land for the supernatural superhero episode of television. And then overall, how'd you feel about it? Last week we had to get real about the story not being as strong as we had hoped it would be, and I'm frankly in a place where I think last week's story was stronger than this week's. I think it was an important piece of the story. I think it was a nice element, but even more so than last week, I feel like we didn't have an arc. We didn't have this is what was found over the course of this episode. It was just like, here's some more shit, and we'll get to it. So I'm not quite as high on it as I was last week. I did love the costume design. I think the soundtrack was better this week than it was last. But I did say earlier that I thought the writing was better last week. I thought the visuals were better last week. I thought it was there were a couple distinctive moments in this episode though that had a nice touch, and it usually is that broken mirror thing that really, really sells me on the visuals in the show. Him seeing Mark in the gun. That was a cool shot. So it did have its moments, but I think overall last week just hit me a little bit harder on the visual side of things. It felt more visually distinctive.
Guess we had a trailer moment here. Him jumping across, and the moon
that
being there.
That was strong.
Whenever he's the shot of him actually like the, jumping off, slamming him through the spike, like that.
Slam dunk.
But no, I would agree that last episode was probably a little stronger. But I'm thinking, is it
3.95?
Yeah, because I was like 4 seems a little. I don't know. It just seems too high for some reason.
I don't know. I think I'm still too high there with it. I think 3.75 might not be too far off for this episode. It was all right, but ultimately it wasn't everything I would hope for an episode to be.
I really hope that Layla isn't going to turn evil. Or like that she's the one who's like, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen, but I hope I don't know.
She's putting off the vibes of someone who will look out for her best interest when the time comes. And I'm not digging it. It doesn't seem like the whole moral of it all is exactly why she's in it. Granted, we don't know her all that well yet. I'm just going based off the way she was talking to her husband, who was in a confused mental state.
Mm.
I understand that we're in a bit of an urgent situation here, but I don't know. Respect the people you love. Felt like he's telling you something's wrong. You are not listening to the fact that he's saying something is wrong. And I do understand, you're not thinking about it. You don't know it. Why would you assume such a thing? But it's been going on for hours now. You got to accept that something is happening.
I think the moment where she does sort of accept it is because minutes before this, the moment I'm talking, they were talking of hieroglyphs and like, oh, you know them so well. And she's like, I'm not buying this act. I'm not buying it, blah, 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 whatever. But then he's about to go grab the scarab out of the bag. Mark tells him, no, you'll get her killed. But she goes and grabs it. And then he's like, you can have it. I don't care. And she was like,
so you don't remember any of it?
Wait a minute. Like, I think that was maybe the first inclination of her being like, this isn't an act, or like there's something else to this. And I hope it's just, I hope next episode, maybe she'll, they'll have like a conversation to sit down. Well, I guess he's in Egypt now. And did she go with him? He's already fought people, in Egypt. His hands were bloodied. And he's taken the room was all messed up. Whether that's just himself, I guess it's probably not his own blood on his fists. But what has he done in Egypt already? And maybe
we ended the episode in the flashback. Much to think about.
Oh shit. Oh, because, he's like, where are we going? He's like, well, where the hell do you think? And it seemingly seemed like they just teleported. Like, Khonshu, teleported him there? But it would make I don't even know if that's possible, for one.
I'm not sure. But,
I don't think so. But I didn't even think about that.
Could be something there.
Maybe that's the explanation of why you didn't see Steven in the reflection necessarily. Or I guess, I don't know if it was. It didn't seem like Steven is my only thing.
Gotcha.
In that reflection.
Steven's been through some shit by the end of this episode, though.
True.
So maybe he's a little bit more like, all right, I see what's got to go down here. All in all, I do think it was an important piece in the narrative that's getting spun before us. But I'm hoping we don't get a weaker installment than this. I'm hoping this is as low as we go. This 3.92 out of 5 stars. It's still not crazy low, 7.8 out of 10. But if you're fucking with the Colton and Joseph Penny Bloom scale, it's not good. We're pretty loving critics, and if you're getting something less than a 8 out of 10, we were being pretty harsh.
And I mean, we're used to comparing it to the movie of the year, of sorts. And in no way is one episode of a 6-series show going to compare with like a Godfather or, a Dead Poets or, something that was crafted.
It will.
Yeah, that's true. I guess we are kind of all taking that into, it's all relative and our scale, fluctuates depending on like what we're watching.
I feel like we view these MCU television series, like the ratings in which we're placing it on. It's not exactly the same scale. There's something else at hand. Like I said, I try to give MCU stuff its own scale as compared to the other stuff because I just don't know how to compare it.
If we were to compare
in a fun way that reflects the way I actually feel about it.
If we were to compare with our other rankings, this episode is below Pulp Fiction, but above Training Day, which is just hilarious to say out loud. But I don't know. I think from here on out, I feel like it's going to be all gas, no brakes. We're in Egypt, maybe. In Egypt now, maybe it could.
We're at least headed there.
Yeah, and Amit probably coming next episode here. At least the voice. Maybe we'll see. Who knows if Arthur is the avatar of Amit or just doing things in his own will, whether he's doing it or whatever. But I'm excited.
I'm getting his own will vibes. That him killing that guy in the town square feels pretty. I'm just doing this because I can. Potentially wiping out the person who knows he has the scarab. But then he watches Layla drive away, so it's like, so now is he after Layla? Wait, he's already been after Layla. I don't know.
You think he can? He says that he can't hear Khonshu, and maybe Khonshu really is just that predictable that he's guessing exactly what he's saying at the time. But I wouldn't put it too far off to say if you were an avatar of Khonshu
you
at
might
one point,
still be able to hear it.
I don't know. Or if he is Amit's avatar and Amit can hear Khonshu, and Amit's the one relaying whatever
that
to
would be
him.
interesting.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess really we're just gonna have to see what happens next week. And that, I mean, I'm drawn in. I'm into this show. I guess
I'm digging it.
where do you put it on the Marvel scale so far compared to WandaVision, Loki, and Falcon and Winter Soldier?
I mean, I'll do my best to compare it to like the first couple episodes, like where we were sitting after a couple weeks. I don't know if there was a single show I was feeling higher on straight out of the gate than WandaVision. I loved episode 1 and 2 of WandaVision. Loved episode 1 and 2 of Loki. That was so strong. I think I'm digging this more than I was digging Hawkeye and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Forgot to mention Hawkeye. Sorry. As a live action show. Whoops. I
was feeling it. Like I was feeling the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I was feeling Hawkeye. But I think the Falcon and the Winter Soldier hits its stride in the back half, and I think Hawkeye does the same.
I'd say Loki is probably the closest comparison. For one,
I was feeling really good about Loki after 1 and 2. Now, that's a better example of what could. I don't know. The story wise, they did pretty good there. They did pretty good with Loki, but I
guess the mysterious aspect of like following Loki, of he doesn't know what the heck's going on, but he gets a better idea, and like by the end of episode 2, he's kind of in it. He has
an understanding.
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know. I'm just excited to see where they go. Where do you think the show end? What's the end goal? Is it just the defeat?
Right now,
of Arthur?
I think defeating Arthur Harrow, taking down Amit is as it stands. If our targets, if our goalposts shift over the course of the season, who knows?
Any last minute predictions here that you want to get in?
Nah, I think I kind of exhausted myself to the point that I threw out the storage unit guy Mephisto theory. Which when you're throwing that out, you're kind of out of predictions.
I did throw Hiroshima out last week, so I mean nothing's too crazy here. And I mean, I have been saying Ultron's coming back for years now. So
for years,
yeah. So nothing's too crazy. I won't spoil anything, knowing what's happening and all, but I'll make predictions.
Yeah, obviously, Joe is the all-knowing after all.
Kevin Feige, he comes to me for the answers usually when he's stuck, but. And
he kneels before the altar of Joe.
Nah.
Oh dear, Joe. Tell me where to go with this.
I don't know.
Should I bring Ultron back? Yes, my son.
Of course.
But in 15 years, when everyone will call me crazy, but I will have been right all along.
I can't wait for that case of beer from each of you guys whenever Ultron's back in live action.
Yeah, that's a lot of beer coming for you when Ultron shows back up in live action. But yeah, I'm very excited about episode 3. I think I'm approaching these next couple episodes in a different way than I have the other series. I think I've finally learned my lesson in terms of expecting shit in the MCU shows. I'm not expecting a fucking thing until 5 and 6.
That's fair.
Nothing huge. Nothing like, wow, can't believe that happened. That made my jaw drop. What a sequence. Wow, story moment that made me go poof. I think 3 and 4 we're probably going to get something more in the vein of these first 2 episodes, hopefully ramping up the tension a little bit and making us feel a little bit more like the story's headed in a specific direction. You know, like we're sitting pretty right now, but we've got our eye on something, and I'm hoping we keep narrowing down on that. The whole Amit, Arthur Harrow of it all. I hope it doesn't expand much beyond that. But yeah, that's where I'm sitting after Moon Knight episode 2.
And I've watched it twice so far, and I will say on the second watch it was more enjoyable. You know, you shouldn't have to be that way. You know, it should on the first watch be how it is. But I think this will be a show that I do go back and watch every now and then. I feel like by the end of it, it'll be up there.
There's something about it, you know. There's this electricity about it that's keeping me in it, to be sure. You know, like
I think it's so different. We just haven't seen this in Marvel. And you know, WandaVision was so different. I'm not trying to say that WandaVision's, you know, not original to Marvel, but it was a character in which we known about and everything. And I don't know.
Story built upon MCU events.
It's just cool to see something new come into the MCU, and yeah, for episode 3, I'm not expecting anything, but I'm gonna take whatever we get.
Very, very, very excited, and that's I think that's kind of the way to approach MCU shows at this point, you know, and it's kind of because I've finished the episodes in pretty much every show, you know, like the only show I've watched so far where I finished, or I guess there were a couple where I finished episodes and just gone, fuck yes. That was exactly what I thought that was exactly what I needed from this show. WandaVision, it happened multiple times. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it happened a couple times. And maybe it happened once in Loki. You know, like maybe. But, you know, and Hawkeye was different. Wasn't exactly expecting anything from it, so I was just kind of allowing anything to wash over me. This, going in with a grain of salt, like I said last week. And so far, it's going pretty good. It's going pretty good. But I want it to be great.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait a week. And I'll be up at 2 a.m. to see it under the light of the moon.
Under the light of the moon. And with that, we conclude the Moon Knight's Watch number 2, Summon the Suit. 'Twas I, Colton Robertson, and I was joined by Joseph George. Thank you very much, homie.
Oh, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Oh, and it's always a pleasure to have you. Like we said, this ended up coming out to a 3.92 out of 5 stars on the old Penny Bloom scale for our old ratings section, which is always fun. But yeah, if you would, head to patreon.com/CoroBloom, where you'll find over 24 hours of exclusive content. All that money goes back into making sure I could put this podcast on. Don't make no money off of it. So it'd be nice to be able to get some money over there for it. Head to Twitter, follow at PennyBloomPod, follow on Instagram at PennyBloomPodcast. Leave a 5-star rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you're fucking with me and Joe. As always, we're doing our 52-year journey through film every Friday. This week marks 1984. This Friday will be The Terminator, which I'm very excited about. Fun sci-fi flick and a classic. So I'm very excited for you to check that out. That'll be this Friday. Remember, peace, love, and bloom. And break his windpipe.